Hey guys, I want to talk a little bit about the MattZilla build here. We're going to do a test drive out here at the Bell Park. There's a lot of old river rock here and it's a good spot to test out crawling tires. So I took the FPV system out of this. Right now it's stuck in a Jeep, so it's pretty nice to just have it right on top of the mount like that. I can take it off and drop it in whenever, and the receiver plugins are on the bottom, so that's super easy. We got a guest here in the truck. I'll take a minute to talk about here what's going on. This guy here is OutBack Jack. He's actually on tour around the world with the RC Brotherhood guys. So right now he's stuck here at GCM, and we're going to give OutBack Jack a real tour of Bell Park here in the buggy, and hopefully he's a good driver. I guess we'll find out. So I was going to finish talking about this outside, but it got windy and I didn't want to have the wind noise in the camera. So back in the studio here, I think this truck drives fantastic. This, of course, I've got comp tires on it and stuff, and I grant you that. But the low suspension setup is really, really good. It just when you're up on the rocks on a major steep angle, which you saw. It doesn't torque twist off the RoCk like it tries to stay planted. I really like the way the suspension is set up on it. Jack's driving, on the other hand, he got the ramp there the second time around, but it took him long enough. One of my favorite things about this truck is the stance. I like my trucks low. The MattZilla chassis kind of has this super flat profile to it, with then the cab kind of on top. I like that look. It's easier for me to kind of grasp, you know, the shape of it. And some of these new buggies that have like the extreme amount of tube work on them, they're probably a lot safer than a MattZilla if you were Jack. But on the other hand, this is really clean looking. It was easy to panel. It was a fun, easy build. And the good news is that I'm running it on a 2-cell battery. And still with the stock Wraith motor, you saw I put the single metal gear in the middle of the tranny. I have upgraded the servo from the stock servo now because it crapped out in almost no time. But granted, it's a big tire, so I'm not too surprised about that. What I can tell you right away is that the stock Wraith ESC, which is the Sidewinder version, it's not producing enough horsepower for the servo on its factory Beck, so I'm going to add an aftermarket Castle Beck to this. To get some more servo voltage on it. I may go with a RoCk simple Beck, which they have a fantastic unit that literally just plugs into the servo when you're done. So there are a couple of tiny changes I'm going to make to it, but for the most part, I'm pretty excited to be able to go out and do a actual RoCk crawling event now, where no trails are required. That's a nice change for us. We build a lot of scale trucks. You can kind of see what's going on in the background here in the scale garage. There's just steady scale trucks being built, but a RoCk buggy is where it's at for me. Really happy with how this worked out. I can FPV it on demand just by bolting back on the camera stuff and plugging in my servos. The radio is all programmed for it. I'm going to drop in my Beck. And aside from putting in some interior panels for when the FPV is out of the way, I'm basically done with this rig. It's been a great time to do the build for you guys. One thing I can tell you, and I want to make mention of this, you remember when I put the SSD axle housings on here, we used the SSD Delrin center skid that goes on the bottom of the axle. It's kind of this little curvy thing here that just covers over all the pumpkin gears, or screws, sorry, on the gear cup. And really, really fantastic product. Drove it today out on a bunch of gnarly rocks, and even the stuff that wasn't on the camera, and I really enjoy the fact that the back end simply doesn't get hung up on anything. If you have the front tires on the rocks, and the back is literally off the ground, high centered on the differential, it will just slide right over, and that's because it's got that little skid plate under that covers all the screws. There's nothing at the bottom of these diamond axles that can hang up with that little skid plate on there, so that's great. Going to head out to do some more rock crawling with this in the next little while. Our season right now is heading into the cold. So I'm trying to stay warm, and most of the trail trucks are going to be sitting on the axle stands here now for a little while because of the weather. And so this thing is going to get a whole bunch more use. I'm not afraid to take it out in the wet and get it dirty, and be able to drive it on the trails and rocks when they're starting to get slick and gross. And so that's where this thing is going to find its life. Hopefully I can FPV the thing all around the property here at the shop with the winter months coming along, and be able to sit in my warm office while I'm driving all around. That ought to be fun. Maybe I'll get a video of that happening sometime in the future in our winter here. as the weather cools down. Thanks for watching the series, guys. If you want to see the entire series, and this is the first one you've seen, there's a link in the YouTube description box for the whole playlist for this particular build. And in each of those videos in the YouTube description box, you will find links that I'm using for items I'm talking about. You'll find links for the chassis. You'll find links for all the different stuff I'm using to set up SSD parts, links for my tranny upgrades. And if you want to see what else is going on with Jack, OutBack Jack, sign up for the RC Brotherhood on Google+, and you will find Jack traveling the world. He's got some interesting character traits. I think he needs to improve his driving skills a little bit, but other than that, he's a cool guy. See you later. Hey, what are you looking at, bloke?